A dusty Enugu street shimmers under a late afternoon sun, with noisy kikine peps buzzing past rusting zinc-roofed buildings. Samuel, tall and lean with sweat on his brow, balances a tray of fabric on his head, his eyes tired but kind. Beside a flooded gutter, a teenage girl in a faded school uniform clutches soaked books, blinking away tears as thunder rumbles above. Samuel pauses, lowers his tray, and holds out his umbrella, shielding the girl from the rain with a gentle smile. She looks up at him, stunned by the kindness, and whispers, "Thank you, sir," as the first raindrops begin to fall. Inside a tiny tailor shop later that day, Samuel sews by lantern light, his fingers pricked and tired, yet his thoughts are on the girl. At a roadside momo put, he buys 2 small bags of rice and quietly slips one into a schoolgirl's backpack left under a bench. MMA Uzoma, his aging mother, fans a charcoal stove at home and mutters, "My son would die helping people who forget." The next day, Adaora knocks gently on his workshop door, holding her school report card and bowing low with both hands. He stares at the results, all A's, then looks up with teary eyes and says, "You are the seed this world has ignored." The village square glows at dusk as Samuel hands Adaora a second-hand phone wrapped in a scarf, telling her, "Dream big." He walks home barefoot, soaked from the rain, smiling quietly as lightning flashes behind him. At night, he places a tiny iron box under his bed, dropping in the only money he has, whispering, "For Adaora's school fees." His friends laugh over beer bottles, saying, "Why train a woman who isn't yours?" But Samuel walks away without answering. At the village stream, Adaora tells her sick mother, "There's a man who believes in me even more than I do." The gates of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, swing open as Adaora steps in nervously, carrying a heavy box and wearing oversized shoes. Samuel stands outside the campus gates in a faded shirt, waving proudly, even as the boss fumes coat his face in dust. Inside his tailor shop, he crosses out to new shop on a list and writes, "Adaora's hostel feast," in bold red ink. He wakes at 4 a.m., ironing uniforms for school children, the humming machine his only companion before sunrise. He skips meals to afford printing Adaora's handouts, tucking them into a parcel with his handwritten note, "Keep shining." Adaora begins to wear better clothes, speak with confidence, and laugh louder, her words slowly rising above his. In her campus hostel, she sits with friends wearing makeup and sipping wine, while one asks, "Who's that man always bringing you things?" Adaora replies, "Just someone from the past," as her friends laugh and say, "You've outgrown your village love." Back home, Samuel kneels beside his mother's sickbed, feeding her umla with one hand while sewing with the other. He misses his friend's wedding to finish Adaora's school project, smiling faintly at a photo of her framed in his room. At convocation, Adaora wears a bright blue gown and takes a selfie with her lecturer, while Samuel watches from a distance behind the crowd. After the ceremony, he walks toward her holding a small cake in a box with, "Congratulations, Barrister Adaora," written in shaky icing. She hugs him briefly and says, "You came," but quickly turns back to take more photos with men in suits and gold watches. That evening, he sits alone by a bush lamp, staring at her old letters, whispering, "She's almost mine now, just wait." He pulls out a velvet ring box and opens it slowly, the silver band reflecting the candlelight as his lips tremble with hope. In a quiet local restaurant with plastic chairs and buzzing ceiling fans, Samuel kneels on one knee, holding out a silver ring with shaking fingers. Adaora covers her mouth in surprise, then slowly says yes, as the waitress claps and a nearby boy shouts, "She say yes oh." That night, under a starless sky, Samuel sits on the hood of a taxi, smiling to himself, whispering, "She's finally mine." Inside her hostel room, Adaora stares at the ring box on her table, biting her lip, while her roommate asks, "You sure you love him?" Their village erupts with joy weeks later as drums beat and women ululate during the small traditional engagement ceremony under a mango tree. MMA Uzoma holds Adaora's hands, looking into her eyes, and says, "Never betray a man who pours his blood into your roots." Samuel builds a 2-room apartment at the back of his father's land, scrubbing the floors himself while imagining where Adaora would place their bed. On their wedding day, Adaora wears a borrowed lace gown, barely smiling as Samuel dances joyfully in front of her with wide, boyish steps. During the reception, she scrolls through her phone under the table, while Samuel dances with the village children, his joy pure and unaware. They move into the new home. Samuel fills the kitchen with food, the walls with framed pictures of her graduation, and the wardrobe with her favorite colors. Adaora begins her NYSC in Abuja, while Samuel remains behind, calling every night and ending every call with, "I miss you." Adaora answers less and less, often with one-word replies, and Samuel begins sleeping with his phone clutched in his hand. After service, she tells Samuel she wants to open her own law firm in Enugu, and he immediately empties his savings without question. He borrows money from the tailors cooperative, signing papers with trembling hands, but smiling because her dream is now mine. Inside her new office, Adaora hangs her degree beside a new painting, while Samuel installs the ceiling fan himself and wipes sweat with a rag. Weeks later, she tells him not to visit the office too often, saying, "Clients need to see professionalism." He nods, confused but trusting, and walks away as she picks up her ringing iPhone and laughs into it softly. At home, he cooks her favorite meal, white rice and garden egg sauce, but she comes home late, says she's eaten, and locks herself in the room. Samuel stares at the untouched food, then quietly places it in the fridge with a sad smile and mutters, "Maybe tomorrow." One night, he finds her laughing at a message on her phone, but when he asks, she simply says, "It's work. Don't worry." Samuel sits alone in the living room, holding Adaora's old love letter in one hand, while her laughter echoes from the bathroom as she talks on the phone. Samuel sinks to the floor, clutching the invitation, his chest rising and falling as silent tears stain the cement floor. The next day, he packs a small bag, boards a night bus to Abuja, and rides in silence, staring out the window as city lights blur like wounds. At the mansion gate, he sees guests dancing, drummers pounding rhythms, and Adaora, radiant and smiling, feeding cake to Chief Kenneth. Samuel pushes through the crowd, his face pale, his eyes locked on hers like a man drowning in memory. Their eyes meet, hers widen in brief shock, then harden like stone. She steps forward and says in a low voice, "You shouldn't have come. I had to see with my eyes," he says, broken. "I had to believe you were capable of this." She tilts her head slightly and says, "Don't cause a scene, Samuel. Please respect yourself." The guards close in. She turns back to her new groom without another word. As he's led out, guests whisper, "Isn't that the tailor who trained her?" And another murmurs, "Women, eh?" Samuel stumbles into the Abuja night, sitting on a roadside gutter, rain now falling heavily on his wedding shirt. He pulls out the ring box he once gave her and watches as water fills it slowly, a symbol of everything sinking. A beggar approaches him, asking for alms, but instead of replying, Samuel whispers, "She buried me alive." Samuel walks along the edge of a cliff at dawn, barefoot, soaked, eyes blank, a man completely emptied of hope. He enters a remote village, where an abandoned school building becomes his shelter, his bed nothing but woven palm mats. He switches off his phone permanently and begins to live like a ghost, growing a beard and surviving on gari and soaked bread. In the dusty corner of the schoolroom, he finds an old chalkboard and begins scribbling software code using white charcoal. By night, he studies with a cracked laptop and a solar lamp gifted by a retired headmaster, typing with 2 fingers, determined to start again. His hands tremble from hunger, but his eyes burn with quiet fire, the fire of a man who has nothing left to lose. 2 years pass, a simple app he built to connect tailors to clients across Nigeria suddenly begins to go viral. Tech blogs write, "The anonymous genius from the bush." His name reappears in the world, Samuel Uzoma. In Enugu, Adaora sees his face on TV for the first time in years and drops her cup of tea as the anchor says, "Local tailor becomes tech millionaire." In Lagos, Samuel speaks at a conference, dressed in a simple kaftan, as the audience gives a standing ovation. When asked about his journey, he simply replies, "I was once a seed buried alive, but I remembered that seeds rise." At his mother's grave, now renovated in marble, Samuel kneels and places flowers, whispering, "Mama, I did it, I rose." He returns to Enugu, this time in a convoy, launching a youth tech hub named the Uzoma Dream Center for orphans and abandoned children. A large crowd gathers in the village square, singing his name as he donates laptops and scholarships to 100 students. A little girl in tattered uniform approaches him with a handwritten essay, and he kneels down, saying softly, "I believe in you." At the back of the crowd, hidden by a head tie and sunglasses, Adaora watches him, thin, weary, and carrying a worn-out handbag. After the event, she approaches him slowly and says, "Sam, can we talk?" He turns, sees her face, and pauses, not in anger, but with the weight of 1,000 buried memories. "I was wrong," she whispers, her eyes full of regret. "I lost everything. And I lost you." "You didn't lose me," he says, calm and steady. "You threw me away." She begins to cry, trembling. Do you still love me? Samua stares at her with eyes no longer filled with longing, just clarity. I healed. That love died and gave birth to someone new. Can we start again? She pleads. He steps back gently and shakes his head. I'm not your future, Adaora. I'm someone else's miracle now. He walks away as the sun rises behind him, casting a golden light on the man who rose from betrayal and became legend. Adaora stands frozen, watching his silhouette disappear into the cheering crowd, a man she once had, and forever lost. Please like, comment and subscribe for more videos.